Hello and welcome to this First Look Exploring session, our second First Look Exploring session, looking at the tragical history of Guy, Earl of Warwick, his admirable achievements and various events from his life, as printed considerably later than potentially this play was originally produced, of which no absolute answer can be given. We had somewhat of a hoot last session. Not unproblematic though the play was. There's an awful lot to be enjoyed between the very earnest Guy and the very enjoyable comedy relief of Sparrow. We have had, I say, 3 acts in the text done so far. We're now going to dive into Act 4 and Act 5 and complete the play, and we're hoping that the curse of the final session will not strike and we will enjoy this play still. We shall see. So, reading the part of King Athelstone today is...
Hi, I'm Alan Scott, based in Suffolk.
Reading the part of Herod, not a king, just Herod, is...
Hi, my name's Elizabeth Amisu and I'm also based in Romford.
Reading the clown Sparrow today is...
Hello, I'm Sarah Blake. I'm an actor, writer and director living in Germany.
Reading the part of Angel, typecast again, is...
Hello, I'm Dan. I'm based in Montpellier, France.
Reading the part of Swanus today is...
Hi, I'm Eric, and I'm honoured to play another king.
Always good. Always good. Reading the personification of time today is...
Hello, I'm Francis Cox. I'm an actor living in Amsterdam.
Reading Rainborne today is...
Hello, I'm Lynn. I'm a teacher. I live in the United States.
Reading Phillis today is...
Hello, I'm Helen Good. I'm a historian living in Yorkshire.
Reading for the Act 4, only the part of Guy today is...
Hello, I'm Valentina. I'm an Italian actor and voice-over artist in London.
Reading a random lord and also Guy in Act 5 today is...
Briony Sparrow, actor in the East Midlands, and I'm excited to hear about the exploits of my great-great-great-great-grandfather.
Absolutely. Reading the first Palmer today is...
Hi, Nicole, actor in New Jersey.
And reading the second Palmer today is...
Aliki, Chapple, actor and translator in Lancaster, England.
And reading Colbron today is...
Longstaffe, scholar of early modern drama, based in Lancaster.
And I'm your host, Robert Crighton. I will be reading stage directions and keeping everything moving vaguely in a forward direction. Continuing that forward direction, we dive into Act 4, Scene 1. Enter perfectly on cue, because can never be late, is time.
Thus time, that in his ceaseless motion controls the hearts of kings and emperors, hath now converted Sultan Shamarath to tread the path of perfect Christendom, and now with bishops, priests, and patriarchs, they are returned back to Babylon to christen all that heathen nation. Think this is done, and now again suppose that Guy of Warwick, after he had seen his Saviour's tomb, and there had offered up as monuments of lasting memory his sword, his shield, and warlike furniture, he there vowed never to bear arms again, and now towards England is returning back. Imagine that Sir Rainborne, his fair son, is grown a man, and hearing of the deeds of his great father, leaveth all his friends to seek him out in foreign nations. Think this is done, and now again suppose that Guy of Warwick now is waxen old, and at length of many a weary step he comes to England, where perforce, alas, he must oppose his weak decayed limbs against the vigour of a giant's strength. For now the Danes, in absence of this lord, have set their feet so far on England's ground that they had almost conquered all the land, and to a forced parley drives the king. How they conclude, and by what means agree, time shall make known to you. immediately.
And exit time, having filled us in actually quite neatly for where we are in the play. Thank you very much. Time, Act 4, Scene 2. Enter Swanus, King of Denmark, with him Colbron. Then Athelstone, King of England, with him Herod.
Swanus of Denmark, since to this interview by thee appointed, we here both are met. Speak, what canst thou demand from England's crown?
Thy crown and kingdom is by conquest won, yet if thou canst provide a champion that dares encounter mighty Colbron here, if he that fights for thee do win the day, all title to thy crown will lay away. But if that Colbron gets the day in field, the English power to the Danes shall yield. And then thy homage and thy princely crown will Swanus bear to Denmark as his own.
Perforce must yield to thy demand. But had I Guy of Warwick, thou shouldst know, thy giant's force he soon would overthrow.
I tell thee, king, no wheat-bred arm of thine can shed one drop of mighty Colbron's blood, whilst I have power or any strength to stand, or grasp this truncheon in my warlike hand. For in my fury I will take my foe and fling him higher than the moon's bright sphere, then bandying back the football of my rage, cast him down headlong to the neighbouring sea.
No more, no more. Tomorrow is the day.
When might or right shall bear the crown away.
And they exit. I'm just going to briefly pause there. Colbron is presumably quite a large chap. And hence the joke we had earlier about Oberon and Colbron. So Oberon being in this play quite short, so the confusion with someone being much bigger. And it's a really interesting question how Colbron's bigness might be depicted here. We do know of sort of big giant costume effects that have been done in other places. So I'm wondering whether there is a sort of giant costume that goes with this, or whether it's just the biggest person in the company and how that works. Especially and the reason why they're calling on Guy, because basically Guy, it's his stick is taking out big things, because he has, of course, taken out the wild cow of Dunsmore Heath, as we found out in the opening of the play. Snigger ye not. It was obviously a very terrifying cow. Thoughts on the room? Anyone want to leap in on Colbron or anything else? I'll go to Eric, then to Helen.
Yeah, but wouldn't it be funnier if you just have the shortest person in the company being Colbron? It's like, look at me, I am terrifying! And then, like, this tiny person comes on.
If they spent a long time setting up that he was going to be this massive giant, yes. If he's saying the joke won't land otherwise. You need more of a setup. But yes, as a joke, I like it. Whether it works here, I doubt it. Helen, then Stephen.
Well, one thing about this play, there's no doubt about where to put the interval.
Yep.
Also, I was under the impression, I must say, at the end of the last session, that Guy was at the height of his powers and on his way back to his home and little son. But obviously, he spent an awful lot of time taking his armour off and putting it on a tomb.
Yeah, it's all he's going to spend the residue of his sinful life in zealous prayers and repentant tears. Phillis is very...
Couldn't he do that at home?
No, clearly not. Clearly not. Phillis is very low on his to-do list here, of which, we can only judge him. Stephen?
Somebody might know the answer to this, but I have a feeling that giants sometimes had a place in processions, in the Lord Mayor's processions. And I'm wondering if perhaps the giant would summon up this sort of sense of civic pride, civic pageantry, if this play is played in London or elsewhere, for all I know, and linking it to the world outside the play and memorialising the great deeds of whoever it is. I wonder if it's I know it's part of the story that he has to kill a giant, but I'm wondering if, in terms of the staging, if there would be a kind of cross-fertilization there, and it would also help the play do its job, whatever its job is, if that link were to be perceived.
I'm fairly certain there's at least one Lord Mayor show that does actually have big giant costumes that are very prominent. I cannot off the top of my head remember which one it is, or if it features more often than that. It's not unusual for Lord Mayor shows, if they've got a costume or a setup in place, that it will get recycled over a number of years, depending on how expensive they are and whether they have a hinterland elsewhere. There is some crossover potentially with some Lord Mayor shows and other things.
But they're not often in plays, are they? I mean, can anyone remember giants in plays that we've done? Because we've done, right? I'm just.
Yes.
Yeah, there's something.
Because it seems to be reusing things, doesn't it? And then this is something. I know you have to do it to do the story, but.
Yeah, well, so far all the giant things have been off stage. This is a giant literally on stage, which is nice. Helen, can you remember where we've met giants before?
Yes, isn't Bremo a giant?
Yes.
Yes.
Or certainly very large.
Yeah, I mean, the wild man of the woods, the woodwouse was it Musidorus?
I think it possibly was, which would make this the second crossover with Musidorus available.
Yeah.
I will have a little look and check that. But yes, whether he's technically a giant or just very big and lumbery. We decided he was, I don't know if the script stated he was explicitly.
Well, he must have been pretty big. I mean, wild men of the woods tended to be very, very tall in all the carvings in churches and things.
Okay. So, any additional thoughts before we haven't read a lot so far? It's a very short little scene. Eric?
I like the idea that, how do you call it? Sarah proposed yesterday that Phillis is sort of just sitting at home, enjoying her solitude, or raising the kid by herself, and sort of like, well, having a cocktail, whatever, and like just basically living the high life without her husband, because he's basically pissed off, hasn't he?
Yeah. I like the idea that we have a Phillis cam that the audience can check in with every so often and just say, and she's just having some crumpets, watching telly, feet up, perfectly happy.
Single mother can sometimes be rough, but she has got Herod to do the child suppression bit. I mean, when the boy gets bad, she can always threaten him with Herod.
Yeah, you do get the impression that in terms of the extended support network, that there's a lot in place for her. Less so for Sparrow's squeeze. I'd expect there's quite a difference there. But then we go into sort of Blood Brothers territory, and we don't want to do that. Okay, we're going to go forward. Hold on to any thoughts that you may have. So we're going to do Act 4, Scene 3. Everyone's wanting to know. They wish they had Guy on their side. He'd take out a giant, wouldn't he? Act 4, Scene 3. Enter Guy, being old.
Thus 21 winters have I been a very stranger to my home-bred soil, and never set my feet on English ground. In foreign countries have I eat my bread, and now bring winter on my snow-white head. Which of my friends that meets me by the way will once imagine that I am Sir Guy, that vanquished knights and made stout monsters die? Oh, no, not one will once remember me, beauty and youth so little lasting be. What place is this, wherein I am arrived? I know it well, 'tis called fair Winchester, whereas King Athelstone doth keep his court. The nights far spent, and my age withered limbs are weak and weary with my long travelling. Here will I sit and rest myself a while, and with sweet sleep my onward thoughts beguile.
And he sleepeth. Enter Athelstone with a lord disguised.
What means your majesty thus carelessly to walk abroad without your wonted guard?
I'll have no guard unless thyself with me. For know this night, as I lay in my bed, a blessed angel bright and crystalline in golden slumber did appear to me, bidding me walk out of my castle gate, and the first man that I should meet withal, choose him my champion to defend my right, which makes me rise thus early for to see this heaven-bred champion sent to let us free.
Guy starts from his sleep.
Give me my sword, mine armour, and my shield, that I may cope with Hybin Hercules. The horrid villain in the centaur's shape hath ravished Leda on her wedding day. Therefore I hand to hand will cope with him, were he the master monster of the world. Alas, where am I, poor distressed man? My troubled mind utters I know not what. Thou fight with monsters, fight thou with thy grave, and for thy sins humble forgiveness crave. But out, alas, I fear I am o'erheard. He espies the king walking. Oh, I think that must be stage direction.
Yes, stage direction there. He espies the king walking, yes.
I will inquire of these the ready way that leads directly to your city fair. Good morrow, and God bless you, gentlemen.
Morrow, father.
May I be bold to crave which is the way that leads directly unto Winchester?
This path, good father, leads to Winchester. Oh heaven, what should I think my dream pretend, that willed me choose the first man I should meet? But this good aged man is far unfit. Yet will I ask his counsel in this cause, that may avail me far more than his strength. Good father, may a stranger be so bold to have some private conference with thyself?
Speak on, good sir, and whatsoe'er be my truth I give to keep it secretly.
Then know, good father, that I am a king, my court's beset with many enemies, and this last night as I lay in my bed, a heavenly vision did appear to me, bidding me rise up straight and walk abroad, and the first man that I should meet withal, choose him my champion to defend my right. Thou, aged father, art the first I meet. But he that doth maintain this fight is a most monstrous giant, huge and strong. And thou art feeble, weak and impotent. Yet I counsel, father, what I were best to do.
Do as heaven wills. Yea, do, my gracious lord. If by the all-foreseen power thereof I am appointed for to do this deed, though I be old, yet you shall well perceive I'll not give back nor yield 1 foot of ground. What though he be a giant that maintains this deadly combat? Ere I'll turn my face, I'll leave my body breathless in this place.
Oh, how it glads my very soul to see a youthful mind in aged livery. Come, reverend father, for thou now shalt be a king's companion that will honour thee.
Go on, great king, an old man once will try the vigour of churlish giant's strength. Though he be huge and strong with whom I fight, my God is just and still maintains the right.
And they exit. So, time has passed. Guy is there. King Athelstone has a dream. First person he's going to meet is going to be his champion. Not impressed at first sight, has to be said. He's going, oh, God. The only note I've got down so far is the expenses on beards is going to be quite a lot in the second half. Athelstone, Guy, even the Lord potentially, if it's the same Lord who was in the first half, or one of the Lords in the first half. I feel the beard energy really strong here. Wigs as well. Fun times, Francis.
Yeah, I was wondering how old King Athelstone is, because he appeared in the very first scene. And at that point, I assumed he was maybe slightly older than Guy. But here it would seem that he's younger.
Yeah, I do kind of feel like that.
Guy's had a hard life.
That's true.
Yeah, he's been out in the cold and wandering around praying and fasting and things.
He's been away for 21 years. Now, supposing he was, say, 21 plus a bit when he left.
Except he did heroic stuff for 7 years to achieve Phyllis's hand. So he's going to be like 25 5 anyway.
So we're talking about someone who's 50.
Yeah.
And who's fought a lot of giants and a wild cow.
Look, I don't see why you harp on about this wild cow.
I think it's an important point. And to be fair, also the savage boar of Caledon. So there's
that's important.
Yeah, very important.
Well, the cow has great comic value.
Anyway, I saw other hands, Sarah, I think, and then Briony, I think I might have seen. So I'll go Sarah first.
No, I was just going to raise the same point as Francis and say that time seems to have moved along a different continuum in England, because Athelstone appeared to be older and now he's 20 years younger.
Well, discontinuities in the timeline there.
Perhaps it's Athelstone II.
Okay, maybe it's a different Athelstone.
And didn't Guy take a vow to give over the battle-y life, and now he's going to go fight a giant?
Well, he did get expressly asked. I mean, it'd be rude. It's one thing to wander around not fighting, but when someone comes up to you and says, "Hi, in a dream, I was told," oh well, maybe it's one of those things. You say that's what you want to do, but the moment the opportunity comes, is yep, get the sword out, kind of thing. Briony.
I was Helen took the words out of my mouth. I was just going to say that he had a very hard paper round, and that potentially, because we know kings like to name their children after themselves, it could be a different Athelstone.
Okay, questions about which king is who, and the timeline in England travelling slower, which asks all sorts of interesting questions about what magic is going on in this play. Anyway, we should move on and complete the act. It is not a long act. None of these acts are desperately long. So Act 4, Scene 4, enter Swanus and ho, green giant Colbron.
Now, Colbron, rouse thy giant's settled limbs, for all our blessed hopes on thee we lay, thinking to bear the English crown away.
I tell thee, King, thou troublest me with doubts, for half their kingdom is already won by Colbron and the Danish conquerors. Upon the rest I will sharp vengeance take. Where are these faint hearts? Oh, that they were come, that I might finish up a day of doom.
I hear them coming, therefore let's prepare to bid them welcome to a bloody feast, for I perceive they are all resolute.
Enter Athelstone with Guy and others.
Swanus of Denmark, see we keep our word and come to try our right by dint of sword.
Bring forth thy champion.
Here he stands prepared.
Oh, who? He, alas, poor silly man, give him a pair of beads to pray on.
Scorn him not, Swanus, for this old man's hand against thy mighty giant's force shall stand.
Must Colbron fight with such a withered ghost? A very shrimp, a worm, a gnat, a fly. I scorn him. Will spurn him at my feet.
Leave of thy braves, blaspheming heathen dog. For God, whose quarrel I do take in hand, will add fresh strength to these my withered limbs, these aged sinews that are weak and old. He can renew with monster conquering strength. Therefore, to show I do not fear thy threats, sound an alarum, let's begin the fight, for with my palmer's staff I'll cope with thee.
Thou shalt not hazard so thine honoured age, begirt thyself with these war's ornaments.
What shall I do, unhappy wretched man? For when I left the wars of Palestine, I made a vow, even in the sight of heaven, never to fight with sword or shield again. But I must break that vow, or leave this land, my native country, to the violent hand of damned usurpers, which shall never be. I'll break my oath, and sweet heaven pardon me, Here do I take this sword into my hand, and buckle fast this shield unto my arm, although I know it is no armed hand that can prevail, but heaven, where truth doth stand. And now, thou great arch-guider of the world, that saved Daniel in the lion's den, look down on me with thy all-piteous eyes, and by my hand vanquish thy enemies, that all may say in glory to thy name, that little David hath Goliath slain. St. George for England, let's begin the fight. Angels, by me defend fair England's right.
In Mahound's name I do thee edify, for I will crush thy bones immediately.
They fight. Exciting fight scene occurs. No expense spared. Guy killeth Colbron.
St. George, St. George! England hath prevailed, and Denmark and his champion now are quailed.
Mahound, confound that old man's hellish arm that hath wrought England's good and Denmark's harm. Now perforce to Denmark we must go, ne'er had the Danes so great an overthrow.
And exit Swanus.
Since by thy means, most reverend aged man, I and my country are delivered from the usurping Danish tyrant's power, I conjure thee by that holy vow which thou didst make in taking on this weed of thy religious holy pilgrimage. Tell me thy name, and what thy country's called, which was so happy as to foster thee.
Upon condition that your majesty will vow to keep close what I shall reveal, I will resolve your princely mind at full.
Speak freely then, for whatsoe'er it be, upon my word, I'll keep it secretly.
I take your princely word, then know, great king, I am your subjects and in England born, and many favours have received of you past the deserts of my unworthiness, for which it glads my soul that I ere die. I have done some service for your majesty. When I was young, men knew me by my looks, but now the hand of age hath changed me so that not one man doth Guy of Warwick know.
So said my soul when first saw thy face. Welcome, oh welcome to thy native soil, which thou hast freed from ruin and from spoil. And 10 times welcome art thou unto me. Thine absence long hath wrought my misery. But tell me, hast thou seen fair Phillis yet?
My lord, I have not, nor I do not know whether my beloved Phillis lives or no.
I can assure thee that thy Phillis lives, but her old father Rowan, he is dead. Stage direction there.
Guy weeps.
Sir Rainborne, thy courageous-hearted son, hath been these 2 years for to seek thee out. Why weepst thou, Guy?
I weep for joy to hear this happy news. Hath Guy of Warwick then a kingly son, and is fair Phillis still in perfect health?
She is good, Guy, and I'll send speedy post to Warwick Castle for to fetch her hither.
Oh, I beseech your grace to give me leave, an end of this my pilgrimage to make. And for when I took my way Palestine, I made a vow for 27 years to keep myself unknown from all my friends. Full 21 are expired and gone, 6 more begin past. I from my vow am free, and then all my friends disclosed I'll be.
I must consent, since thou wilt have it so. But at the 6 years' end I'll come to thee, and with me I will bring so rich a train as shall in state bring Warwick home again. Till then I leave thee to thy sweet content, willing my life for thy good be spent.
And exit the king.
Farewell, my liege, farewell, my sovereign. And now, poor Guy, since thou art left alone, think on thy Maker's mighty love to thee, who in thy youth did make thee feared of all, and by thine age hath wrought a monstrous fall. He has preserved thy true and faithful wife, whom thou didst love more dearer than thy life. To her I'll go as fast as I can hie, but she'll not think that Warwick is so nigh. Oh, Phillis, Now thy lord is waxen old, who when thou sawest him last was stout and bold. Yet, as I am, I'll seek my Phillis face. If he that made me gives me life and space, I'll tell her tidings of mine own estate, and fetch my food at my own castle gate. And for 6 years, which I alone must lead, Phillis must feed her unknown lord with bread.
Exit Guy, another 6 years. Another 6 years yet to go because. So many things here. We have the randomness of the Danes being swearing by my hound. Again, you're sort of just being used as generic pagan sort of thing for anything not Christian. That's what they swear by. That's the way it works. I was a bit distracted there because I was looking up where giants are used. So giants seem to be a perennial thing, potentially in Lord Mayor shows or any outdoor kind of pageant, in the sense that the crowd control might feature people dressed as giants. So it may not actually feature in every show. That people dressed as giants is a perennial thing that you'll get that, and also in the watches as well. The summer watches will feature giants. So giants are a real perennial thing that in London are appearing, and in other cities probably as well. I need to continue looking up things on that note. But yeah, giants are about. There's a lot of giants about. You can't miss them. You can't miss them. Yeah, thoughts from the room. Quite a lot to take out of this. Rachael.
No, I was going to ask, is he just going to pretend not to be who he is for another 6 years to his wife? Is this like another Marquis situation where he's just pretends the children are dead to prove her faithfulness? A gaslighting?
I don't think it's even anything to do with proving anything. It's just he vowed it, so therefore it is so. I don't think there is even that level of arsehole intent behind it. He's just being because. I could be wrong there. Let's see what the room says. Lynn.
Vows are functioning very oddly in this part of the play, because he mentions that he took a vow not to take up arms again. Oh well, but I can't let my country suffer, so I guess I'll take this sword and hopefully heaven will forgive me. And then, but I will fulfill my vow to remain unknown to my friends for 6 more years. Like, the vows count, or don't they?
Yeah. There's an awful lot of why is this happening? Because. Helen.
He says he loves Phillis more than his life. Either he is delusional. No, there's something wrong here. I don't know what's wrong here, but there's something very wrong here.
Aliki.
I think it's just the thing you say. I love her more than my life, and then you don't actually care, because it's all just enormously self-regarding. It's all about his soul and his faith and his honor and his vows.
Yeah, because it's that sense of Guy, we said this a bit yesterday, that he's sort of there in pose every time he's speaking, that there is almost like, this is the figure I am presenting, and that there isn't actually any interiority to Guy at all, and that's why he's so easily spoofable by Sparrow, who is disappointing for his absence. The clown had a day off for Act 4, and isn't present, so I'm wondering about the doubling. I'm just wondering if just simply the clown's been quite dominant. Let's not have the clown on for a bit. Or maybe we'll never see the clown again, and Sarah's been given a part that's actually nebulous. I don't know yet. I don't know. I don't think that's going to be what's happening. Eric and anyone else?
I was just going to mention, like, I can't remember where it was at the beginning of the scene or the previous scene, where like right before they start the fight, like they're building up to it, and Guy goes, "Sound an alarm! Let's begin the fight." I'm just wondering if that's like sort of like waking up the sound guys in the background, just like sort of, because there have been a lot of those things where like, oh yes, trumpets and parlays and sound the parlay or whatever it was, and it's like, yeah, I mean, if they were that well coordinated, they wouldn't need the cue. But yeah.
Yeah, well, there's nothing. We've had quite a few plays where, there's the cue for the sound person is very explicitly, "Can I have the next sound cue, please?" And lo, it happens. And let's not knock that. It's good stuff, and I think in the context of a fight, that and this, or challenging people, that happens a lot. Explicitly within its diegetic sound that is being called for. Aliki.
Just on a different topic, pointing out the parallels which we've talked about in the chat. This is an Odysseus story. I come unrecognizable as a beggar. I go after 20 years. My son is grown. He's looking for me. Let's see if anybody recognizes me at the old home place. Kind of thing.
Mm.
Is there a dog who he left as a puppy? Who is going to see him crawl over, lick his hand, and then expire?
Well, Helen knows her Odyssey.
I was very well educated. Shame it didn't take.
Mm. Other thoughts before we move on, Rachael?
Just that what Aliki said about the Odyssey and what Stephen said about Lord Mayor's shows and stuff like that. I don't know. We have those are such. I know they're popular elements in other plays. Odysseus and stuff like that. But that also seems like a reoccurring theme sometimes in Lord Mayor's shows. That nautical show, and just that. We have time here, and there's always some sort of speaker like that, that gives a speech in a Lord Mayor's show and then, just walks off.
Yeah, and also we occasionally have Lord Mayor shows where the playwright has actively tried to put in obviously their favourite bit of material that's more theatrical than normal. Like occasionally randomly Robin Hood appears, and is quietly told you can't have that bit, and he tries to sneak it in anyway. Thank you, Anthony Mundy. So yeah, the potential for crossover and conversation between those I think is really strong. Okay, we've completed Act 4. We set aside our guy. We get a new guy in for Act 5. And we get lots of people we either haven't seen for a while or have not met before. So, Act 5, however, there's always continuity. Scene 1, enter time.
Thus, Guy to Warwick Castle now is gone, where, hearing of the alms fair Phillis gives to Parmus that do daily pass that way, he thither goes, and at her hand receives his daily food. And, being unknown, he tells her tidings of his own estate, and in a forest not far from the place, a mile distant, called Arden Wood, with his own hands he builds himself a cave. What follows now of Rainborne his fair son, Sir Herod's meeting, and of their return, and what to Guy of Warwick doth befall, sit pleased a while, and time shall show you all.
Exit time. Act 5, Scene 2, enter Guy alone.
Now I am come in sight of my fair home, that's called Guy's Cross, for that I did erect before I went to fair Jerusalem. Here was I wont to sit and view my land, and eke my castle that on tiptoes stand, to overpeer this part of Warwickshire.
Enter 2 Palmers.
Come hither, let's a little mend our pace, for we are near to Warwick Castle now, where I've heard of late fair Phillis dwells, who gives alms to all that pass that way.
Good brother, let's go thither presently. But stay, methinks here sits an aged man. Let's ask him if he'll go along with us.
With all my heart. All happiness attend you, aged father.
The like I wish to you, good gentle friends.
May we entreat you go along with us to Warwick Castle, where fair Phillis dwells, who giveth alms to all such as we are.
With all my heart, I'll go along with you.
Enter Phillis and a servant with bread and wine.
See where she comes out of her castle gate.
Both palmers kneel and pray.
Heaven bless fair Phillis for this deed, and send Sir Guy of Warwick home with speed.
Amen, amen. Come, give them a reward. There's bread and wine. Eat and refresh yourselves. And here's some money to relieve your wants. And pray for Guy of Warwick and his friends. But wherefore stands this aged man so sad? What art thou, father?
A poor distressed pilgrim, gentle lady.
More welcome art thou unto Warwick's wife, for in a pilgrim's weed my lord is gone, even to the furthest part of Christendom. But tell me, father, hast thou travelled far?
Lady, I have, and seen my Saviour's blessed sepulchre.
In all thy travels, didst thou never hear of Guy of Warwick and his warlike deeds?
I have both heard and been with him, even at the siege of fair Jerusalem, where he performed such deeds of chivalry that by his means the city was preserved, and Sultan Shamarath with all his host was overcome and wholly vanquished.
Oh, let me embrace thee in my tender arms and kiss thy aged cheek, for until now of my dear lord I never heard so much. Reach me a stool. I prithee, father, sit.
Here on the ground I'll sit. 'Tis earth and dust. From it I had my birth. To it I must.
Give me some bread. I prithee, father, eat.
Give me brown bread, for that's a pilgrim's meat.
Reach me some wine. Good father, taste of this.
Give me cold water, that my comfort is. I tell ye, lady, your great lord and I have thought ourselves as happy as a king to drink the water of a crystal spring.
Oh, do not break my sorrow. Do not break my sorrow-beaten heart with sharp remembrance of his miseries, that is more dear to me than all the world. But, gentle father, for this happy news which thou hast told me of my beloved lord, if in my castle thou wilt stay with me, for Warwick's sake I will make much of thee.
I thank you, lady, but I cannot stay. My hast in pilgrimage calls me away. Therefore, in duty here I take my leave.
Oh, stay a while, and do not go so soon, for I am loath to leave thy company. This poor reward of Phillis shalt thou take, which I do give thee for my Warwick's sake. So fare thee well. Whatsoe'er the cause should be, my heart is full of grief to part with thee.
And exit Phillis and her servant.
And mine of sorrow and deep misery.
Come, father, will you along with us?
Go on, good friends, I follow presently, as fast as weakened age will give me leave.
And exit the Palmers.
And now, poor Guy, fall prostrate to thy knees, and thank the God that gave thee such a wife. Phillis, when thou art dead and laid in grave, few such true women will fair England have. And now will I hie me unto Arden Wood, there in a rock of stone I build a cave, and of my Phillis fair, whom I love best, I'll fetch my daily food. And thus in rest, till full 6 years be brought unto an end, unknown to any, in my life will spend.
And exit Guy to in a rock of stone to build himself a cave. Because Guy is this is all perfectly rational. This is all isn't Guy coming across as a wonderful chap? And Briony.
I just love how he's still going to pop home to the wife for his dinner every day. Scandalous.
Aliki, I got the impression that you were really enamoured of all that was happening in this scene. Both from the chat and your facial expressions, you're a big fan of Guy, I can tell.
I'm a big fan of Guy. Yeah, deadbeat dads are my favorite kind of. The self-righteous ones even more so.
Stephen, you were waving, muted at present.
Can I just be the first person to say that he's building a man cave? Which does actually exist. So the sort of serious point is this is quite an obscure point of Warwickshire topography to be popped into this play. I wonder. Well, it seems to me quite obscure anyway. I don't know if it's in the sources or not, but what are they just, if it's in the source, are they just using this to, for God's sake, pad it out somehow? Is that what it's doing there? I really have no idea. It seems to me things have taken a turn for the worse from the spectating point of view.
We've just had a giant fight, just a moment ago. This is a moment of stillness. And where we're here to, this emotional semi-reconciliation scene that we're all absolutely on board with, as a piece of drama. Alan, then Lynn.
I raised the issue early on yesterday that it feels to me like this may actually originate from the West Midlands because of the Warwick connection, the Dunsmore Heath, which is near Rugby. The cave, as Stephen's just mentioned, in the grounds of Warwick Castle. I have a feeling that this is geographically located in that area, and maybe the play originated in that area, or bits of it.
Lynn.
Yeah, I was just going to say even more Ulysses, Odysseus action here, because don't Penelope and Odysseus have a conversation in front of her hearth where he's like, oh yeah, Odysseus, I met him. He was fine last I knew. Something like that.
Okay, we're going to move on because we're going to meet his son, and we're going to see the return of Sparrow. So everyone's possibly been dying to happen. So we will rat on through this scene and maybe the next scene as well. Maybe we'll take a chunk at a reasonable length. We'll see what my whims and moods in the moment turn out to be. So Act 5, Scene 3. Enter Rainborne, Solus.
Now that the posting chariot of the sun hath tired Phoebus in his wanton steeds, the dusky clouds hath closed up the day, and Hesperus is left to guide the world. Here, Rainborne, rest thyself within these woods, and give thy weary limbs some time of stay, until that Phoebus chase away the night away. Then will I buckle on my arms again, and never cease pursuit till I have found my warlike father, the renowned Sir Guy, which I will do, for in this journey die.
He sits down, enter Sparrow.
A pilgrimage, quotha? Marry, here's a pilgrimage indeed. Why, I have lost my master, and have been this fortnight in a wood where I have eaten nothing but hips and whores. That ye may make fiddle strings of my guts, they are so thin. But I am served well enough. When I was at home with my old father, when I had my belly full of beef and bag pudding, but I must be travelling with a pestilence.
He espies Rainborne.
But stay, who have we here? Some traveller, I hold my life on it. I care not greatly if I knock out his brains and then take away all his money. Yet sure he has not much, he has such fine clothes on. For commonly nowadays our gallants in their silks and velvets have the devil dancing in their great hose, but there's never a cross to hinder him. Therefore I'll wake him sure. Woo! Woo!
He hollers in his ear.
Woo. How now, Sparrow? What are you?
A Christian. What art thou?
art thou a Christian? Prithee, where art born?
If faith, sir, I was born in England, at Stratford-upon-Avon, in Warwickshire.
Wert born in England? What's thy name?
Nay, I have a fine finical name, I can tell ye, for my name is Sparrow. Yet I am not no house sparrow, nor no hedge sparrow, nor no peeking sparrow, nor no sneaking sparrow, but I am a high mountain, lofty-minded sparrow. And that Parnell knows well enough, and a good many more of the pretty wenches of our parage, faith.
Well, very well, sir. What make you here in these counties?
Marry, I have lost a stray master. Can you tell me any tidings of him?
What's thy master's name?
My master's name? Why, you would not hear it, would ye?
Yes, sir, that I would.
Well, he has a tickling name, I can tell you.
Howsoever, let me hear it.
Yes, you shall hear it. He is called the most courageous, bravageous, contagious. But do you hear, young gentleman, have ye ever another suit of apparel near hand?
Why, sir?
Why, truly, all will not be well with ye if you hear my master's name. Therefore I would wish you take heed what ye do. For you'll perfume that, so ye will have need of another.
Sirrah, leave your prating and let me hear it.
Nay, ye shall hear it. He is called the most renowned, profounded, compounded. But hark ye, have ye ever a clean shirt about ye?
Why, sir?
Why? I know if you hear my master's name, you'll blow your nose backward, and then your laundress will call you sloven.
Why, ye base peasant, shall I not hear his name?
Oh, Lord, sir, ye are deceived. I am no pheasant, though I be a sparrow. Yet you shall hear my master's name. He is called Sir Guy of Warwick.
Sir Guy of Warwick, my renowned father!
Thy father? Thy halter, indeed! When I came out of England, I left a wench pretty and plump. Thou mayst be my son. If thou be'st, kneel down and ask me blessing, and I'll give thee twopence.
Away, base slave!
Why? Dost thou think scorn to ask me blessing?
Aye, sir, that I do.
Then I think scorn to give thee my twopence.
Sir, leave this talk and tell me certainly, where brave Sir Guy at this time doth remain, and with rich gifts I will requite thy pain.
Will ye so? Why, the last time I saw him, he and I were going towards England, and in the midst of a great wood I lost him. But I had better have been hanged, or some worse mischance come to me, for I am like never to get home as long as I live.
Nay, fear not that, for if thou stay with me, for Warwick's sake I will make much of thee.
But are you Sir Guy of Warwick's son?
Upon my knightly word, I am.
Faith, I doubt you are some lying hangman, for indeed we travellers may lie by authority. But I tell ye what I'll do. Stay you here till I go into England, and ask your mother. If she says so, I'll come again, and then I'll dwell with you.
Nay, stay, sir, for it is above 1,000 miles into England.
1,000 miles? Make sure I'll take your word before I go so far to try the matter. But if I should be content to dwell with you, what diet will you allow me?
Why, sirrah, to your dinner you shall have a pomegranate.
A pound of garlic? Why, I never eat garlic in all my life.
I said a pomegranate, which is almost like an apple.
Apples to my dinner? And what to my supper? Quickly, quickly!
Why, to your supper you shall have a couple of olives.
Nay, that's not much amiss. But that is 2 legs of beef stuffed with parsley.
You are deceived, sirrah, for an olive is no bigger than a plum.
How? Apples to my dinner and plums to my supper? Oh, my belly, my belly, my belly! Why, master, you have killed me already. But I'll tell ye how you must use me. At 8 o'clock you must call me up. But you must not make too much haste, for I must have an hour's scratching before I can put on my shirt. Then betwixt 9 and 10 I must be at breakfast, and from 11 to 1 at dinner. Then I must go to sleep till 3, then I must have my afternoon's luncheon. Then at 5 of the clock my supper, and then what work you will all the day after. But you must not feed me with apples and plums, for I must have my fill 5 times a day of beef, brewis, bag puddings and pies. Oh, how my teeth waters to think on them. Besides, odd bits in a corner. And if you deal thus with me, I'll dwell with you, and do all this that I have promised you.
That's eat your victuals and sleep.
Why, aye. And something else too, though it be no great manners to speak on't.
But art thou sure my father's gone for England?
Am I sure? Why, I tell ye, he is in England long ago.
Why then, in haste I'll post to England now, but I'll not tarry in it, nor elsewhere, unless I find my warlike father there. Come, Sparrow, follow me.
Do you hear, young master? Though you be my master, yet I am your elder, and therefore your better. And always, while ye live, learn to let your betters go afore ye.
And they exit, and I will pause there because there's so much to discuss. Once again, the Hodge energy is super strong there. He's got the fleas. He's very keen on his nunchings. I'm just loving the who's your master? He's the courageous, contagious, renowned, profound, confound. Ma picture. And then I think you play that really nicely of just going, he's called Sagai. It's all the build up and then moving away. The gameplay here is really nicely done. There does seem to be a bit of a dick joke in the middle of there of how high mounting you are. That seemed to be quite distinctly sexual. He's very keen on food. This is a lengthy series of mishearings about food, which sort of actually is still moderately funny. It's the kind of stuff that could really not be funny, but actually does seem to work very nicely. Briony.
I love his mishearings because it's such a dad joke moment. Because he was doing it earlier as well with Oberon and Colbron and Mutton Bone and whatever else you call it. But I love that because, I know a Mr. Sparrow that tells all the same jokes.
Yeah, and it is a bit of comedy shtick that we've got going back, a good 100 years or so. There's this deliberate mishearing by the clown or the vice or whatever is just a perennial piece of business that just never goes away. And sometimes it's quite good stuff, and sometimes it is not. This is, I'm going to say, high standard on the whole. Of never-ending bad jokes. I like bad jokes as long as they're good bad jokes, and they seem to be good bad jokes. They're not great jokes, they're very simple jokes, but I think they work.
Lots of bodily function humor.
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta have some extra clothes because when I tell you you're gonna wet your pants.
Or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
So other thoughts? How are we feeling about Rainborne? The son who's gone off looking for father, and of course, at the moment his father's just arrived at home. Oh, what are the chances? And Sparrow just got lost.
Yeah.
He says he's been this fortnight in a wood. Do we think it's a fortnight, or do we think actually time here is an illusion? So I think he's been there for about 20 years. I think he lost him ages ago. He just fell through a wormhole. Francis, then Rachael.
Yeah, Rainborne seems to be cut from the same bolt of cloth as his father. He's going on this quest to find his father. And, he seems to have taken his father's place in this comic duo with Sparrow.
Rachael, then Helen, then Stephen.
No, of course, all these different, everybody seems to be on a different timeline, and I wonder if has something to do with the fairies showing up and bonking guy on the head. And they're all wandering around in the woods.
Maybe the magic wand that Guy's got is actually sending him through a slightly different time. He's out of sync with everybody else. Maybe that's what's going on. Helen.
Yeah, what I find rather sad is that Guy doesn't seem to have noticed that he's lost Sparrow.
I think he's probably quite pleased. He probably spent ages deliberately losing him.
Yeah.
And, like the cat came back, he just kept looking back and, no, he's still here. Okay. Yes, no, you have to go all the way to that well. It's just over there. Keep going, turn left, turn right, just over that next hill. I'll be waiting right here.
Just for the sake of continuity, in that whole scene where we were missing Sparrow, I would have expected him to have said something. I don't know. Maybe not.
Stephen.
Yeah, just a suggestion, a performance suggestion, really. I think it would work really well if you just had Sparrow wandering around when he wasn't on stage. Has anybody seen the John Travolta Pulp Fiction meme where he comes in and goes, where am I? What's going on? I think it would work really. I mean, I know he's not supposed to be an innocent, but I like the idea that the clown is basically not in any world at all. Just kind of the clown will amuse himself until he's actually required back on stage again. And he'll just go, sit next to the audience or wander around and look at the curtains or something like that.
Yeah, just turns to the person next to him and goes, there's a good bit coming up, I come on. Sarah, then Briony, then Dan, then Francis.
I just had a very whimsical point, or no, more of a thought, wasn't a point really, picking up on what Francis said about Rainborne being a chip off the old block. I can imagine a scene on the Phillis cam where Rainborne's grown up and he's whittering on about his dad and he needs to go on a quest, and Phillis is there. Oh, that's a good idea, darling. Why don't you go and do that? You go and find him. Yeah. I'll stay here. You just go and.
Yeah. Briony.
I was just going to agree with Stephen, but say I think he's probably hiding in a bush a lot of the time, visibly hiding in a bush while other stuff's happening on stage.
Bush randomly quivers every so often. Francis.
Yeah, I was just going to say that Guy and Sparrow they never felt like a sort of solid team, as it were. Sparrow is just this pest that keeps turning up and who just kind of trails along behind Guy like a sort of sad dog. And I think sort of you have to suspend disbelief to believe that this odd relationship has sustained itself for 21 years, sorry.
Okay, well, Rachael, very briefly before we move on.
Now, about the Phillis cam, I wonder if we could visit her when time comes on to talk, and if she's there in the, I don't know, or you could just add material.
Yeah, well, it depends really on who Phillis is doubling as in the rest of the play. But yeah, absolutely. Okay, Act 5, Scene 4. I think I may let this run to the end. I may let this just run on now. I keep saying I'm going to do that, and then I don't, because something interesting happens. We'll see. Act 5, Scene 4. Enter Guy alone.
Thus have I almost brought unto an end the tedious time of my long pilgrimage. For of my 27 years remains only 7 days to be accomplished. The longest summer's day comes to an end. The dials point, though none perceive it stir. In length of time creeps round about the same. Even so, this long thought time is almost spent. Only 7 days to come, and I am free. And then to all my friends disclosed I'll be.
Enter an angel.
Thou blessed champion of the highest heaven, be firm in faith, and hear my message out. For my great master sends thee word by me, that 7 days being past, thou sure shalt die. Tears change not fate. Poor pilgrim, now farewell. Go meet more joys than angels' tongues can tell.
Welcome. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, indeed. Exit, Angel.
Welcome, oh welcome be thy glorious will, thou great arch-factor of the firmament. Oh, hadst thou let me lain but one more day, to have revealed myself unto my wife, my dear, dear Phillis, who languisheth in pain, hoping to see her aged lord again. Then had I been contented for to die. So am I now, thou must be pleased, not I. Yet, Guy, bethink thee what thou hast to do. Wilt thou not make thyself known to thy wife? But thus unknown to any lose thy life? Where no man ne'er shall hear of thee at all, nor give thy body Christian burial. Yes, I will hie me straight to Phillis gate, and there reveal myself and my estate. And my dear Phillis, whom I loved best, shall close mine eyes and bring my soul to rest. But wilt thou break that vow of sanctity which thou didst make to him that hath made thee, and seek to contradict his holy will that hath shewed such great mercies to thee still? Oh, God forbid that vow true kept shall be. I'll commit all to him that saved me. And when I die, instead of tomb or grave, I'll leave my body in my stone-cold cave. Thither I will, and spend my short sweet days in contemplation and in holy prayers. I, poor old Guy, go high, and cast thee hither, for life and pilgrimage must end together.
And exit, Guy. Act 5, Scene 5, enter Sparrow alone.
Ha ha! The world's well amended with me, by lady. Why? I am as plumb as a pudding now. For ever since I came to my young master, I have been so puffed up with good cheer that barley puddings are no meat, nor cheesecakes, nor custards, nor no banqueting stuff with me. For as soon as ever we came into England, my young master goes to the court presently, where he and I were counterpaned with such implements as passes. I am tossed up and down like a shuttlecock in everybody's mouth. For who but Master Sparrow, the greatest traveller that has been, that cost 20 nobles and Jericho, and I cannot tell ye where. But for all that, I was served a sluttish trick today, for my master, being bidden to greet a gentleman's house to dinner, took me along with him to wait at the table. Well, as they were at dinner, the serving men, as they took off the meat, set it before the fire to keep it warm for themselves. I, seeing the good cheer, standing in battle ray, and having not broke my fast of all the day, I began to draw nearer the fire and look over my shoulder upon the victuals. At last I spied a fat leg of pork. Oh, how my teeth did water to look upon't! I had not stood long, but seeing everybody busy, I whipped the leg of pork into my pocket, and stood very manly, with my hands at my back, as though I had done nothing. But it was not long ere the fat pork, with the heat of the fire, began to fry out of my slops, and all the dogs in the house came snookering and licking about my breeches. And not content with that, but one unmannerly cur above all the rest popped his nose into my pocket, snatched out the leg of pork, and tore away all the toe side of my breeches. I was fain to go out itching like a crabby thing. But I'll never steal pork again while I live. I'll have one bit of mutton, whatsoever comes on it, i' faith.
And exit Sparrow there. That was all vitally important business that we all needed to know about. I think I'll briefly pause there before we go into the home straight. So, yeah, Sparrow comes in and tells us an amusing story. I found it moderately amusing. I did enjoy that. I don't think it really tells us anything that's particularly pertinent to anything, apart from he's doing okay. But more importantly, Guy has found out, he's going, yay, only 7 more days and I can go into the bosom of my family, and an angel says, you're going to die. To which we all sort of go, nah. Oh, the ironies of, who'd have thought this was going to happen, Francis?
Yeah, I mean, guys like that famous movie cliche, the cop who gets killed in a shootout the day before he's due to retire.
Yeah, just one more day, man. Just. Eric, then Stephen.
What I remembered from what Sparrow was saying, basically it reminded me of, I think it was one of the Tarleton's jests that we read, or something else, something similar, where there was a description of this nobleman who had really long sleeves and used them to steal food. That's what that reminded me of, and I thought I should mention it because it's good fun.
Yeah, it really has a jest book quality to it, doesn't it? This sort of very random story. I wouldn't be surprised if it has some sort of a source somewhere else, because it feels, it's the kind of thing that does pop into plays occasionally, and where you have this kind of story. Stephen, then I see lots of hands. I'll figure out an order in a moment.
I did do Sparrow in a stage reading once, and this is just embedded direction after embedded direction. It's not telling a story; it's acting it out. It even tells him how to get off stage, because it says you go out sideways. So you show the whole thing. You play the dog. You keep shifting your position, and it really, really works. So it's really strange to have this next to, well, presumably what's going to come next, but to what's come before it as well. There seem to be 2 completely different sort of theatrical styles. One of which is very wordy, and one of which is very performing and very visual. One of which clearly seems to point to a performance, and one of which doesn't. And it's a tension all the way through, isn't it? But it seems to me that tension's getting more and more as we move towards the sensible, proper point of the story.
Yeah, but
it's great to have Sparrow back. I get that.
It's the same problem we've been having with morality plays in the past as well, and interlude plays, where you have the moral figures who seem to be these stylized, standing still cardboard cutouts who deliver speeches, but who don't seem to do very much. And then the Vice, who has all this dynamism and audience relationship. So it seems to have this relationship with that element as well, and I'm really interested in this sort of continuing thing in a much later play. Sarah, then Briony, then Rachael.
I am wondering if the dude who's playing Guy has to get backstage and put on some ghastly pallor for his next, for his death scene, and that's why we've got this random stand up, because I can't see why else it would be there. But
it's vamping, isn't it? It's a structural thing to make sure there is a gap between Guy going off and Guy coming straight back on again. Spoilers there for the next scene. Guy is almost immediately going to return in a moment. Briony.
I don't know enough about the language historically and stuff, but so I don't know whether or not he's meant to be mispronouncing words or whether he's using the more very sort of regional dialect versions of words. But I just love how Sparrow gets all of these wonderful, ridiculous words within his speeches. I mean, there's some nice language, like with the flow of the language, but just these odd words like shittlecock and snulkering, and we have the coliphodiums yesterday, and it just really gives it some colour, and I love it.
Yeah, it's interesting that Sparrow's the way Sparrow's dialogue is structured is slightly different to how it was at the very beginning of the play. He had a much broader rural accent at the beginning of the play, or in the way it was written. and now he just has colourful language and interesting use and slightly modified words. So I'm interested in that as a sort of progression. Is that, you know, a deliberate character progression over time, that he's found a different way, you know, he's dispensed with his old ways because he is now a traveller, or does this indicate some adjustment as it's gone on? So that's an interesting, because that's what I said at the very beginning. I said it felt very like Hodge, but it wasn't. The language was quite different in various places. Now it feels just so spot on Hodge now. So it's really interesting. Rachael and then Francis.
I don't know. I might just save this question for the end. I'm just going to save it for the end.
Okay. Francis.
Yeah, I keep given that Rainborne has turned up, I keep waiting for Sparrow's illegitimate child, full grown, to make an appearance, given that there was that mirroring in the first act. In that sense, the play feels a bit lopsided up at this point.
Any other thoughts? Eric, I think I see a hand.
I was just going to say that the Sparrow character is kind of similar to Dick Droom that we were reading yesterday, that we've been reading for the past few weeks, because he's sort of purely interested in food and money. He's not like the sort of shady character from what was it? From Gascoigne's play, that
Glass of Government.
Yes, thank you. I was going to say Supposes because that was so much funnier, but it was also funny. Yeah, he's not the sort of. He's basically a token clown. The food, the women, and the money.
Dan.
Oh, just going to say, it sounds like the typical Arlequin character, especially in their French plays, the Marivaux plays. There's always a character, an Arlequin, who's the only two things that he wants are food and money at every moment.
He's all appetite. And yeah, we've had quite a few clowns that were all appetite. So we shall see. Because we are now coming to the effectively final unit of action. I'm not sure how they break up into scenes. So let's get into it. I'll call this Act 5, Scene 6. I didn't earlier, but I am calling it that now. Enter Guy, being in his cave. To him, the angel.
Now, Guy of Warwick is accomplished, the full effect of all thy pilgrimage. Then rise and pray. Thy sins may be forgiven, for angels wait to bear thy soul to heaven.
Exit angel.
God's will be done. I am resolved to die, and have asked mercy at the hands of him that gave me life, and now will take the same. Oh, what a precious soul hath sinful man, that in itself alone does not comprehend the figure, state, and lineaments of heaven, yet cannot measure nor define itself. So when that all great workman of the world had framed man's flesh out of a clod of clay, and all the creatures of the universal world of the same mould, to whom his very word gave present life only in man's breast, that viled, ambitious, sinful heap of dross, he breathed his own breath, even the breath of heaven, that is the glorious soul we now possess, which is immortal and can never die. Yet he that late was framed of mire and filth, placed in a glorious state of innocence, was not content, but strived to be as good as his great Maker, who could with one word throw him down headlong into the deepest hell. Yet he, in mercy, love, and mere good will, did grant him pardon for his sole offence, and seeing him unable to perform his blessed will, did send his own dear Son to pay his ransom with his precious blood, and to redeem that soul which sinful man had forfeited to Satan, death, and hell. And for a death damned, curse, and unpure, he gave him life eternal to endure, which life eternal grant, sweet Christ, to me, that in heaven joys I may thy glory see.
Enter Rainborne and Herod of Arden with Sparrow.
Go, good Sir Herod, post and meet the king, who now is coming with his warlike troops to meet my father and to honor him in his return from fair Jerusalem.
Hie you to Warwick Castle to your mother. Tell her this happy news of his return, whose absence long hath made her weep and mourn. Come, Sparrow, you shall go along with me.
Shall I go meet the king too, master?
Aye, sir, you shall attend upon my friend.
But I pray, tell me one thing. Is the king a man or a woman?
He is a man.
Well, I shall never love him while I live. For a cousin of his, the king of clubs, made me lose 6 pots of ale at Mother Bunch's. Me faith.
Well, sir, go along with him.
Exit Sparrow and Herod.
Now, Rainborne, glut my heart with wished for joy. Oh, how it glads my soul that I shall see my dear loved father once before I die. The people flock together, all in heaps, clapping their hands and crying out for joy that Guy of Warwick is come again. And all report it for a certainty, in that dreadful day of Winchester, he vanquished Colbron in single fight.
And Guy groans.
But stay, methinks I hear a doleful sound of a departing man, and see here lies an aged pilgrim at the point of death. Oh, what art thou, father? Prithee speak to me.
A poor age-withered creature, gentle son, that straight must yield my due unto my grave, for age and sickness now my life will have.
Alas, good father, thou art sick indeed. Yet if thou canst but lean upon my arm, I'll lead thee to a place where thou shalt be comforted and attended carefully.
I thank thee, son, but cannot leave this place. Yet if thy thoughts be equal with thy words, let me request one kindness at thy hands. It is the last that ever I shall make.
Speak freely, father, whatsoe'er it be. Thy will shall be performed immediately.
Then unto Warwick's castle hie thee straight. Enquire for Phillis, Guy of Warwick's wife. Deliver to her this same ring of gold. Tell her an old door pilgrim at death's door did send it to her as a recompense for her good deeds to him and many mo, since her dear lord away from her did go.
I'll give it her as I hope of heaven, and bring her with me presently. With that sweet balms she may comfort thee. So fare thee well, sweet heaven, thy comfort be.
Exit Rainborne.
Go on in peace, my peace with heaven is made. Thou goest to carry such a doleful gift, as with the sight will kill my Phillis heart. For when I took my leave to go from her, that ring she gave me as a pledge of love, which if I see, quoth she, and thou by not by, Phillis will grieving weep, and weeping die. Oh, did she know her Warwick's death so nigh, and he so near in a cold cave to lie, she soon would come and take her last adieu of him, whose love to her hath still been true. But shall I die before I see her face? I feel death seizing on my heart already, and my sweet Saviour, strengthen me this hour, and in my weakness show thy heavenly power. I come to thee, sweet Christ, I fly. Save my poor soul, let my vile body die.
And he dies. Enter Phillis and Rainborne.
Oh, haste thee, son, and bring me to the man that sent this ring. Alas, we are undone. It is thy father, boy. Good Rainborne, run!
You tell me wonders that amaze my soul. It cannot be my father that would lie in his own country, so as with his wife so nigh.
This is the ring I gave him, which, quoth he, nothing but death shall ever part from me.
See where he lies, even yielding up the ghost.
If it be he hath a mould wart underneath his ear.
View him, good mother, satisfy my mind.
She looks under his ear and cries out. They both kneel to him.
It is my husband, O my dearest lord.
Oh, my dear father, speak unto thy son. But he is dead, and we are quite undone.
O gentle Warwick, speak one word to me. I am thy wife, that 27 years bewail thy absence, even with woeful tears. Speak, speak, if any spark of life remains. I'll think one look enough for all thy pains.
See, mother, how he looks upon us both, and see how fast he holds my fingers now. Something he wants. Behold, he maketh signs that we, with our 2 hands, should close his eyes. Now it is done. See how he faints and dies.
Oh, break my heart, that I with him may die, that in one grave our bodies both may lie.
The king is coming. Good mother, be content. Oh, heavy is my heart, with too much grief is spent.
Enter Athelstone Herod with others.
Sir Herod of Arden, this is the time and place that I appointed for to meet Sir Guy, and do him honour as he hath deserved. But yet we have not heard where he remains.
See where Sir Rainborne and fair Phillis sit, and in their arms an aged pilgrim lies.
And famous Warwick in this pilgrim dies. See, mighty king, and worthy lords, behold the flesh and blood of him that, when he lived, was the most famous knight that e'er drew sword, or clad his loins in complete arms of steel.
Oh, you have broke my heart with this sad news. Is possible my dearest friend Sir Guy should end his life in such an uncouth place? O cruel fate, O woeful destiny. Arise, fair lady, sorrow helpeth not, for if that sighs or tears could aught avail to bring his heaven-bred soul to earth again, my kingly tears should day and night be spent to fetch it thence, but heaven doth that prevent.
Your tears nor mine, dear mother, can prevail, nothing at all. Heaven hath appointed this, angels conduct his soul to endless bliss.
Rainborne, 'tis true. Sweet Phillis, weep no more. Let's comfort all ourselves with thinking thus. We must to him, but he'll ne'er come to us. But in the honour of his worthy name, the shield bone of the boar of Caledon shall be hanged up at Coventry's great gate, the ribs of the dun cow of Dunsmore Heath in Warwick Castle for a monument, and on his cave where he hath left his life, a stately hermitage I will erect, in honour of Sir Guy of Warwick's name. Pass mournfully along, we'll follow all his bloodless corpse and heavy funeral.
4 takes the body of Guy, the rest follow. Enter time with the epilogue.
Thus, time concludes this dolent history and ends this scene with Guy of Warwick's death. So what it is but time can bring to pass. Time lays up treasure where there's virtue scant, gives the silly fool when wise men want. Both rich, poor and rich confess my power divine, and everyone doth say, make much of time. Through the whole world while the world was time rangeth, and 'tis men's manners and not time that changeth. O you whose souls look for eternity, rest in the peace of perpetuity, and kindly grant to this request of mine, for he's but young that writes of this old time. Therefore, if this your eyes or ears may please, he means to show you better things than these.
Exit time, and thus the play ends. So many thoughts. So many thoughts about this play. Rachael, I'll go to you straight away.
No, I wanted to ask, because he really has abandoned her for all these years. And I'm assuming that this is written after, King Henry's had all his wives and everybody's Protestant now. So why in so many plays, like this, like in, Patient Griselle, do we have this, so much wife loyalty, and there's not, like, I'm asking, could she legally divorce him at this time, and why wouldn't she legally divorce him?
Because she loves him. No. It's an interesting question about whether, I suppose having had a child, it would be very difficult to get an annulment out of this one, wouldn't it? Thoughts from the room on that? I'll go to Helen on that, then I'll go to Briony.
Yeah, divorce was not a possibility without an Act of Parliament. You could get a separation from bed and board. But he's done nothing apart from not be there. He's done nothing that could prove grounds for a divorce. I mean, there's no suggestion that he is living in sin anywhere. I don't see in any way, it was very, very difficult for a woman to divorce a man. Much easier for a man to divorce a woman. But even then, I mean, the fact is you couldn't remarry after a divorce anyway, probably. Don't tell Henry VIII.
Briony.
Yeah, I'm really annoyed at Phillis. She's like, I've not liked Guy for a while, but I'm okay with that. Like with feeling that way about Guy, but she's worse because she's put up with all this and just stayed at home and done charity work and waited for him. She's not even annoyed at the end when she finds out that he's been hanging around, coming to her bloody soup kitchen to get his dinner and not even said, by the way, it's me, love. Like, what is wrong with this woman? And also, I think if you were staging this, if you made time like a pothead coming on smoking a big joint, that may explain some of what's going on with this.
I feel like on a much less extreme level, we are hitting the same problem we had with Patient Griselle, which is, there is this conventional idea that that there's this endurance and this waiting, and there's this patience for these people who go off and do these things, and that is fine, and it doesn't really land awfully well for us today. Aliki.
I'm thinking that it's something that did happen a lot, not to this extent, but men went off to war, women stayed at home. When men went off to sea, women stayed at home. And so this is a message that you really want to push, like the folk song, The Dark-Eyed Sailor, maids be loyal while your lad's at sea, right? I mean, that's the whole point. Don't you go screwing around. I guess we could stage it in such a way with the Phillis cam that'd be like, okay, I have my freedom. I have everything I want. I have a castle. I get to do what I want. I get to raise my kid my own way. Oh, well, so sad. Noble fellow, he's dead. But yeah, I agree.
Yeah, because we get to the end, and of course it's this irony. Oh, he's dead before, they doesn't even get a scene with his son. He doesn't get a scene. It's always so sad, isn't it? And, this is the tragedy. This is the tragedy of the title is suggesting that that he just at the nick of time when he could have a reconciliation scene with them, it is taken away from him. Sarah, then Francis, then Rachael.
Yeah, I mean, just amplifying what Aliki said, really. I mean, yeah, I can see that this was written to be sincere, but the scope for sending it up, I just think Well, for me, it would be just too tempting to do. It probably, you know, wouldn't land well with people who know this play and love this play and have studied this play for years and years. But if you made her, I mean, what I was thinking of, because Helen did such a great job with Phillis there, and she made her really heartfelt, and you know, kind of got some real distress into the character. And as I was listening to it, I was thinking, oh, but this could actually be really, really funny. Like the more, like if it's performative, if her grief is performative, the more heartfelt she is in that scene, because, you know, with Phillis Cam, we know that she actually doesn't feel that way. So the more like struck with woe she is in this scene, the funnier it's going to be. I mean, I could envisage going to see a version of that play where I would howl with laughter, and this would be the most untragical tragedy ever performed. However, I am aware that that is not what is meant to be happening, and it would just be one way of doing it.
But there is a big question, because we were talking about this last time. You know, Sparrow is there in the first half of the play explicitly to spoof everything that happens the moment it happens. So the play is giving us that at the same time as something that seems to be sincere. So it's doing some really interesting business there, and the question of what the balance is. The disappointment here is that Sparrow basically disappears. Yes, Sparrow is here and does a lovely bits of comedy business, but it's not comedy business that is explicitly commenting on the action around it. And that's sort of what's missing from these two acts. With the previous three acts, Sparrow's function is to comment on the rest of the action in a comic way. And to slightly send it up, and that's really, really lacking here, and that's sort of the disappointment, because that would cover a multitude of sins for this ending, and would give us permission to look at the sincere plot in a slightly distanced way, which we can't do in this half that we were able to do yesterday, and to do that without completely deconstructing the whole thing, as it were. Francis, then Rachael.
Yeah, the last few comments have been really interesting, because I've been wondering throughout this whole second session how this would have landed with a contemporary audience, because for me it feels so cliched in lots of ways, and I've been laughing a lot throughout much of this session. Because as Aliki says, it seems to be saying, you know, men go off and do chivalrous deeds, and women have to stay behind and keep house and stay loyal. But it's just, but as Sarah says, you could just send this up so easily.
Well, we were having this conversation this week about Glass of Government. It's been brought up already today. A play from the 1570s that the question of tone and what's going on there, and that it explicitly talks about it being both a comedy and a tragedy at the same time. And that these plays sometimes are having their cake and eating it, and that is a thing, again, going back to earlier morality plays, where it seems like they're having their cake and eating it. And whether that you can flip on a coin and go sincerely from this is nonsense to this is very serious in a moment, and that's partly also the structural question about this play, of actually how few actors you need to do it with. If you only go with speaking parts and you really, really play fast and loose with the doubling, you could get this down to an incredibly tiny cast. So there's part of me wondering whether, we've been talking about when is this play written. There's part of me thinking, does it have a precedent version that goes back even further than actually the earliest dating we were talking about? Because it feels like it has one foot in a much, much earlier camp than the 1590s, actually. It's got stuff that is very 1590s in it, but it's also got stuff that seems to go back, potentially decades. So I'm finding that a really interesting question. Rachael, finally we reach you. And then Sarah, I think, and other hands wave at me.
No, it was just because it's not the play itself, but it's just that, these themes and how we're talking about Phillis in the chat. that brings it up, like that brings up questions for me, like how it was for women, because even if she couldn't divorce him, he was still gone for 27 years. So was she not considered a widow? Did they need proof that he was dead? And would a woman be stuck in that situation where she could not remarry legally, even if, he was MIA and presumed dead?
I mean, in the real world, I think there's an excellent question. I don't think the play world cares. The play world isn't interested in that story. Whether it's possible, or whether that might be something done in the real world, I don't know. Helen, then Stephen, I will come back to you, Sarah, in a moment.
Yes, I'm not entirely sure when the ability to get someone declared dead came in. Certainly, in the 18th and 19th centuries, you get a number of people charged with bigamy who had genuinely believed that their former partner was dead, and they turned up. And of course, you've got that strange French village. People write about it at enormous length. And this man came back apparently from the dead, but in fact, he turned out not to be the woman's husband. But she was short of a man, and they plotted it together. Montagu? No? Montague! Yeah, well done. Aliki. Spot on.
Stephen. Muted at the moment.
I mean, I'm kind of Team Sparrow, as you might have guessed, but I'm just trying to get myself into this working as a whole play, because, and the nearest I can get is to think of Guy as a superhero, which gives us, he's a crusader. Okay, that's the superhero thing. He's a giant killer, and his third act is when his powers desert him. It reminds me a little bit of, if anybody's ever read John Buchan books, 39 Steps, there's a whole sequence of them. At the end of this sequence, he's too old to have adventures, and they keep happening to him, and he's in a terrible state. But perhaps a more modern example that might land with people is the original Alan Moore Watchmen, which is in part a meditation on what happens when superheroes get old. And so I think there's a bit of pathos there. And the other thing is something that we've spoken about before, which is he has effectively taken a vow of chastity, hasn't he, to go on his crusade, which links us back into all of those kind of, male figures who take the vow in one form or another, back to our Sam Spades and so on and so forth, in order to accomplish their mission and their quest. So I know it seems really tagged on, and I was just looking back through the play to see, did he actually make that vow? I can't remember. But it's a knightly quest, and that's what makes him a superhero, and that's his mission, and that's the price he pays for being a superhero. So you have to kind of be on his side to see it like that, but I think it's doable to make him to understand how he might have been a heroic figure, in which something like a marriage is really, it's a sort of slight humanizing thing at the beginning to make him seem like a kind of regular guy who then puts on his cape for 27 years, and he's stuck with that cape for 27 years, and he dies before he can take the cape off.
Sarah, then Briony.
Yeah, I've just been slightly distracted by what Stephen's just said. I don't know that he is, in his third act, I don't know that it's a weakening of powers. I mean, he's older, but he still manages to kill the giant, so...
I meant right at the end.
Oh, right at the end, yeah. But what I was going to say, and it kind of ties into what Stephen's just said about the quest, is that I wonder if we're going right back to what you were saying before, Rob, about the function of Sparrow in these final two acts and the fact that it's a bit disappointing. I wonder if we're missing something here, because the fact that he does go on, like, you know, effectively a quest, and he chooses to, you know, go and live in the cave, you know, build a cave, for heaven's sake, and then go and live in it, and, you know, and he's off to the, you know, he kind of has to rely on charity for his food, and that's something that he chooses to do as this noble quest. And then, of course, the next time you see Sparrow after that, he is suddenly obsessed with food. Like, all his remaining speeches in the play are about, you know, him either, you know, negotiating with his new master to get as much food as he can, or then we have the random stand up with the story about the dog. And I wonder if that is actually supposed to fulfill the function that he was fulfilling earlier in the play, and that, you know, he's basically undercutting what is happening in the main narrative with Guy, because Guy is taken this vow to, you know, basically deprive himself. And then you have that contrasted with Sparrow just like basically wanting to feed his face. I mean, he was a very physical, earthy character before in the earlier acts, but now it's like he's becoming obsessed with food and, you know, physical comfort. So I just wonder if that's the anarchic function that he's serving in this later in Act 5, and maybe we just didn't see it. You know,
that as Guy is effectively starving himself as a hermit,
yes,
that
yes,
his servant is just getting bigger and bigger.
Yes, yeah.
I like that. Yeah, that might be a thing, or might be made to be a thing. Briony, then Aliki, then Rachael. I'm not going to go to final thoughts around the whole room, by the way, because we're running low on time. So if you have final thoughts, do wave, especially if you haven't said very much. Yes, I will start working my way around those. So Briony, I think I said next.
I'll make this my final thought then. I think the biggest tragedy for me in this play is that we didn't get like a Sparrow ending. We didn't get to see his son or how any of that turned out.
Yeah, hard agree there. That whole plot line is completely dropped, and that there could have been a separate reconciliation with Sparrow that would really solve a lot of our problems here, I think. Aliki.
Just picking up on what Sarah was just saying, it fits nicely with one of my favorite things that Sparrow said very early on in the play, when he said that the woman he knocked up shouldn't complain of him because wasn't she looking pretty and plump now, whereas he was a shot-and herring. So he's been gutted like a dried fish.
Mm.
Yeah.
Rachael, then Elizabeth.
I was going to say about the superhero thing, and how we were talking about Glass of Government and the tone that, you know, the tragic comical of stuff. Maybe it's because it's more humor than we're used to in something that ends seriously. Like, you know, in Marvel movies, how they have those quips. You know, the people are quipping a lot in the beginning, and then as we go on, it gets more serious. Like in those first movies, it was all quip, and now it's serious, and there's a storyline, and there's I don't know, people have a backlog of knowing these characters, and it's heavier tonally.
Mm. Elizabeth, your picture has dropped out. I don't know if you are still there. If you are still there, then speak.
I'm still here.
Yeah, excellent.
Okay, so I think this play has a tremendous shape to it. I think that the play leans a little more heavily to the side of history than comedy, but the comedic elements do, I think, come out really beautifully. Once Helen talked about the reference to the dog, I immediately thought of Guy, Earl of Warwick, as a John Wick, Keanu Reeves kind of character. As Briony was saying, the play is lifted by its dramatic and striking use of language. I really liked Phillis and Sparrow. It seems that the characters around Guy are particularly compelling. I think that the use of the tropes like the angel and time frame the narrative and break it up in interesting and unexpected ways. And I think one of the things one can say about the play is that it is unpredictable. I agree with Francis, who said that the play feels lopsided. It is one-sided. Well, it feels one-sided a little bit. But I think that's part of the question of genre, because it's both a history and a comedy. If it were just a pure tragedy, I think the narrative may have come across more even. I really like the character of Rainborne as well. He's so different from his father. I must admit that I was a little sad when Guy died. It reminded me a little of Lamort Arthur. One thing I didn't understand was why he hermited himself for 6 years specifically, and why he chose such a long period of arbitrary time.
Yeah, the play really... I mean, you could set up a reason why Guy makes those promises and then he has to stick to those promises. But there's never a particularly compelling reason why he says, I'm going to do this for X number of years and then I will return. You know, in a sense, you could solve a lot of the problems with this play with a few fixes to lines early on to give a reason, a really compelling reason, and it may not make up for the fact that he just basically begs off for, you know, 20 odd years, but it would at least not have the audience sitting there going, why is he doing this? Which we are kind of doing. I'll go to Dan, then Lynn.
So I didn't know what to make of this play, listening to it, because I felt basically like Sarah, that during the last speech, at first I started out laughing because it just sounded a little bit ridiculous, but the sincerity with which Helen was reading it, and then when I was listening to the text, it really struck me that I believe this was meant to be performed sincerely. So throughout, as I mentioned at the beginning, at the top, that, you know, I couldn't find a printing of this until 1661 of the play, but I kept finding various fragments from the 1550s about famous, most victorious prince, Guy of Warwick, the history of Guy of Warwick. So you get into the 1600s, there are so many printings by Samuel Smithson, the famous history. The one that really strikes me is, there's a couple actually, the history of the famous exploits of Guy of Earl of Warwick, his encountering and overcoming of monstrous giants and champions, and his killing the dun cow of Dunsmore Heath, with many other gallant achievements performed by him in his life, and the manner of his death. This strikes me as something that people are really familiar with, this character. There was a Gilgamesh comparison made in the chat that I think might be quite apropos, in the sense that he's going through this long epic journey, going through all of these adventures, and then in his older age, there is a tragedy to this whole thing. So I think that it's not wrong ever to play up the comic tone of it, but I think certainly if you're playing it during the time in which it was played, it would need to be played sincerely, I think, for people not to think that you were insulting this great hero or this noble character. One other thing is, it wouldn't shock me if this was from 1590s, 1600s. I noticed the printer, the 1661 printer is Thomas Pyle, who happens to have share the same surname as one who had printed one of those histories from 1600. I don't know if they're related. It's a T. Pyle from then, and I doubt he was, or Thomas Vere in 1661 and T. Vere in 1600. Don't know if there's any relation, but just little connection there that I found.
I think that there's a lot of work we can do now that we've done the first look, of actually looking at the sources and actually looking at it within the context of what people in the audience might know, and whether there's additional material that we can filch to maybe tie up some of the loose ends, because there is a certain inconsistency in the text that goes through. That's be quite interesting to explore and play around with. Lynn, then Alan, and then anyone who hasn't said anything very much for final, if they have any final thoughts.
Yeah, I want to bounce back to what Robert said about you could rationalize the problem pretty easily. Yeah, it occurred to me that you have a couple of problems: Guy breaking one of his oaths, and then this arbitrary 7 years tacked on the end of his 20-year journey. Mesh those and say, "Oh, I have violated my oath not to give up arms. I will now perform 7 years penance." by not rejoining my family. So you could, you could probably even write in a couple of lines and make it sound iambic pentameter-y enough that a typical audience member wouldn't say that. So you could rationalize that, but the tonal problem seems to me really quite vexing. I really feel like we've got a very big version of the Curse of the Fifth Act in this. Like, I don't know where to have it, because the first part felt so spoofy, and then we're all sad in the end. And it didn't, at least in this format, it didn't take me along as an audience member. I was not on board for that. So it's for me, it's quite problematic.
Alan.
I must admit, the whole thing has a feel to me of a cut and paste job, which I think is coming through from the references we've had to the earlier iterations of the Guy of Warwick story. And certainly in the first half that we did yesterday, there are several what I would describe as set-piece special effects sessions with just enough material to semi-plausibly link them up. And then the second half seems to me to be missing something because there are no similar set pieces there after the encounter with Colbron. And that had the feel to me of, we've got a giant prop, let's find a way of using it.
Yeah, my feeling about this is that we've got some evidence that it's potentially got a lengthy textual history. So it looks like a text that has sort of been knocked about a bit. Things have got knocked off, things have gotten added on, and therefore everything's got a little confused in what's going on. Which in a performance, if it has a reasonably active performance history, that's the kind of thing that in performance you don't worry about because you've sorted it out, because that's how the text functions as a performance thing, and then we're left with this text that without the performance history you don't quite understand precisely why it is in the form that it's in, and for which it doesn't matter whether we know the answers, because it doesn't fundamentally matter to us as performers what we might do with it. Today we have raised an awful lot of questions. I think there's an interesting question about flow, which can only be answered with a second look, which we couldn't do in one session. It is a short enough play to do it just all the way through and see what comes out of it. And it's also got a small enough casting for us to possibly schedule that as an evening thing rather than an afternoon, because potentially we can get this down to an incredibly small number of people. And I'd be quite interested to see what how that might flow. But all that remains is to thank all the wonderful readers that have contributed, and all your wonderful thoughts. There have been so much good stuff. Thank you very much, everyone. Fare thee well. Thank you and goodbye.
Bye.
Afternoon's nunchings.